This conference will now be recorded.
Right ahead.
Terry, can you confirm you can hear me?
Yes, I can hear you.
Perfect, thank you. You can see us and hear us?
Everything looks perfect.
Perfect, thank you.
You're welcome.
I call the Finance Committee to order at 6:31. Hello, one of our, Angela will be here, I believe, in 10 minutes. Katie is going to be joining remotely shortly. But we do have a quorum anyway. So the first thing for discussion and review is the FY26 budget information to date. So I'm going to ask Steve Williams if you've got anything. No pressure.
None given. I think, well, you were all in the room Monday night. Maybe the update.
We were.
We've been updating the income and expense sheet as information becomes available. And the latest update had to do with the Pathfinder numbers, where we actually saw about an $11,000 savings. And it was, due to the reduction in students attending school. So while slight, it did make some adjustments to the gap between available funding and the requested level service budgets. So it puts the schools at $2,131,849, and the town at $407,956.
Less than they have requested.
Right. So over the last few weeks, I've been working on our budgets to reduce line item expenses to cover the 400, at the time it was 9,000. And I had done that. So also Monday night, there was a select board to include a question on the upcoming ballot, May 19th election for Proposition 2.5 over. And I've been working on the items that I feel need to be put back into the budget to be considered as part of the override. Right now, it's approximately $320,000.
Okay.
So we did have savings from some of our commodities and some retirements that we don't feel needs to go back into the budget, so that's why it's a lower amount. Tuesday morning, I sent the email to the school department and asked for their final number, if it's going to be $2,131,000 or something different. I also asked if there's any needs that they've been holding off requesting because of the level service requests that have been asked for, to submit them in an itemized fashion so we can consider them individually. And I plan on doing the same, reviewing different departmental needs as we speak. And with that, they don't have to be in FY26. You know, if we have something that we know is going to be hitting us in FY27, maybe now's the time we talk about it. So that's the update as I have it. I know a lot of it was redundant, but if you have any questions, I'll be happy to answer.
Does anybody on the Finance Committee have any questions? Katie, Mike, John?
Can you just run through the numbers one more time? I know it's 2.131 for the schools. What was the town side?
So the schools was 2,131,849. And the town was 407,956.
Perfect.
So the only other thing I could add is that, and it's probably not gonna make a appreciable difference, but at the end of March is the end of our third quarter, beginning of our fourth quarter, in the fiscal year. And what we will do then is we will review, new growth. The assessors will look at building permits being pulled. And with any luck, we can revise the number that's being estimated upwards a little bit. But I don't think it's gonna be a windfall. Things have been pretty steady and somewhat slow, and it could just have to do with the long winter.
Any movement on the state budget being finalized?
No, I did talk to our legislators and they said run with the governor's numbers. They haven't even really started to look at their numbers yet. So,
Right, but they're not predicting a sharp decline?
no, I think they're projecting a slight increase, but what that's gonna be is, again, it's,
Like last year negligible, like here's the increase, here's the mandates, there's your $1.76?
yeah, they, the press was great because when the budget was passed, it looked like Belchertown was gonna get, in excess of $100,000 more. But after assessments and offsets, it turned out to be a few $1,000. So it wasn't even worth waiting for. So,
Right.
we'll see what happens again this year. And I'm hoping that we'll have the final numbers for property and casualty insurance. We estimated based on what the projections were.
Is that a July through June?
Yeah, so usually we renew in May. So I've been pushing to try to get those prices a little bit earlier.
Do we put it out to bid at all?
No, it's quite a process to change insurance carriers. It's something I'm gonna look at for next year, try to get some pricing, but there's no way we can fit it in before July 1.
Why is it so much of a process?
Just because they need, loss run numbers, they need, a lot of different data. So similarly with health insurance, they usually give us an estimate on what they think the increase is gonna be. And it didn't seem as bad as we expected. So we're using those numbers for now. We're gonna back it out.
What do you have for the health insurance?
Health insurance is through the Hampshire County Group Insurance.
What's the increase though?
Between 18 and 20%.
Pathfinder, I think, was at 16.74.
Yeah, we've been following other insurance providers carefully. Scantic Valley, Maya, the GIC, private insurance carriers. And it's pretty consistent across the board that we're seeing, double-digit increases, in some cases upwards of 22%. So we're not alone. It's an industry problem. Claims are becoming more expensive. There's a lot of different treatments that are very expensive that are being covered right now. One in particular are weight loss drugs. They're upwards to $17,000 a month. So people who are on those scripts are benefiting from that, but it's also causing the other side of the equation.
Right, because when you're a large group, they can look at individuals within your plan and do your pricing based on the usage that you have within your plan.
Correct. So, looking at the plan that we have and reviewing it with other communities and agencies, we're in the ballpark. It's not a huge difference at this point. We're looking at possibly some plan changes, but those will need to be negotiated with all the unions.
Yeah, Pathfinder, they did it last year and they're doing it, continuing again. They did something different with their health insurance where new staff coming in have a different breakout, and then they have a base plan they pay for, but they offer two plans that you can buy up if you need it. And they were pretty good with that. And Eric Duda said he's happy to share what he had to go through to get to that point.
Yeah, there's been conversations. It's quite a process, and not only is there a lot of information that needs to be shared, but every union has to agree to it before it can be implemented. So it's not, you can't implement something like that union by union. it's all or nothing with town.
Okay,
So it's a very long process.
that's interesting. I did not know it was an all or nothing, that it's completely controlled by the 5 unions. That would, we were just talking about health insurance. In order to change it, we'd have to have all 5 unions agree to
Wow.
the changes to implement it.
That's why it's going up everywhere.
So it's something that would take considerable amount of time.
And effort and in collaboration.
Right. So,
And I did not know that all 5 unions would have to agree on it, so that's interesting information. So Angela, we really just discussed, generally what we went over the other night for the budget. Nothing has really changed
Right.
between now and then. So then the next item is the discussion of the Pathfinder budget presentation on 3/12. And that information, Katie was there remotely and John and I were there in person. And as we all know, there is a reduction of about, what is that? There's a reduction of, I'm finding it. $10,853 to Belchertown. And it's a few reasons for that. One is we have 5 fewer students attending Pathfinder in FY26. And the other is that Granby's really had a huge increase in students attending Pathfinder, like a significant. So based on the reconfiguration, Belchertown ended up enjoying a reduction of 10,853. But they were very impressive. I found them to be very impressive with their presentation and their preparedness and the information that they provided. So I have nothing bad to say about that. I don't know, Katie, do you have anything about the Pathfinder meeting you'd like to add, or?
No, nothing I would add. I mean, I think my opinion is more could have been done. There was a slight reduction, but I still think for what we're going through on the Belchertown side, having to find 2.1 million versus attending their meeting where everything is rah rah, we're doing this and all the exciting things, which is great, but it just still doesn't feel equitable. But
Fair enough. And how about you, John?
Same way, I agree. I mean, the sports programs, we're paying for sports in Belchertown and they're getting free sports, so it's not fair, but to start in the right direction.
Yeah, I do appreciate that they listened and they came back, and it isn't a huge decrease, but it was something. It wasn't $100,000 increase. It wasn't what could have been presented was so much more scary than what was actually presented, which was a nice little reduction. But I agree, there's definitely more work to be done across the board. The next item on the agenda is discussion of the HERO Act, an act honoring, empowering, and recognizing our service members and veterans, the financial impact for Belchertown, and then vote as a form of recommendation by the Finance Committee as whether or not to support implementation.
Before we discuss it, I just have to disclose it for a conflict of interest. I got approval from the town moderator and I had to call state ethics, but I have the approval to discuss this tonight for the impact committee. I'll provide a copy for our records.
And I had asked Steve Williams yesterday, I'm not sure if you had been able to get that answer. If it's implemented next year instead of this year, would it still be able to be done, or is it a once and done?
I got partial answers.
All right.
We finished handing out the
Sorry.
paperwork today.
So with that, I did not get approval yet, so I'll probably stay due to that conflict of interest.
Director affecting as well.
You already have a say.
I totally do. Thank you.
So what I provided you tonight is a DLS informational handout for the, what the HERO Act is. There's also a bulletin about the recent legislation that was passed in August of 2024, which is authorizing the towns to create additional tax credits for veterans. And then the final document is a impact statement if we were to adopt these individual measures. So one thing that I want to just mention before we go any further. And I don't think I brought the actual site with me, but there are two. The town currently has a scholarship committee that was authorized under Mass General Law, Chapter 60. And I'm going from memory, so I think it's Section 3B potentially. There's two other provisions under that section of Mass General Law that the town didn't adopt, and that is Section 3. I think it's D and F, regardless. One is for seniors and one is for veterans. Both of those are voluntary contributions, so when you get your tax bill, there'll be an area on there where you can donate to the town. If we adopt the veterans provision, Charlie Olivia would be responsible for setting up a program to distribute those funds to veterans. If we adopt the senior provisions, the select board would set up a committee to oversee the distribution of those funds to needy seniors. Those are voluntary provisions, and I am planning on having those at the town meeting floor with the select board's approval.
And those would be on warrant articles to vote on?
Yes,
Okay.
once they're adopted, then we can implement them. The HERO Act allows for two things. One is additional tax exemptions, and the other is indexing the tax exemptions to the CPI. So there'll be an adjustment that happens every year. Both would have to be adopted at town meeting. You had asked if we could adopt it in May, but delay the implementation FY27. I didn't get a clear answer on that, but if it's the wish of the finance committee to recommend to the select board that we adopt it in FY27, I can research that through council. It would just be a decision on whether or not we vote this May or next May. So I guess it depends on whether or not.
Yeah, and that was just something off the top of my head, like nobody's discussed anything. It was just a question that came based on the current situation we're facing overall.
Before we talk about the HEROES Act, can we just ask Charlie to explain the HEROES Act and what it is, so everyone knows what it is? Sorry, Charlie, put you on the spot.
The stress is on. Hello, my name is Charlie Oliva. I'm your veterans agent. Full transparency, I am also a 100% service-connected disabled veteran, so I need you to know that not only I reside in Belchertown, so not only am I your veterans agent, but these benefits do affect me as a person, a homeowner in town as well. I currently receive $1,000 abatement on my taxes because I'm 100% service-connected disabled. The HEROES Act implemented many additional benefits for veterans, some of which came from, I was placed on an advisory board for the governor for suicide prevention, and there were a lot of grant funding that came out, and please forgive me for my speaking. I was asked very recently to be here, so I didn't prepare anything. I apologize. There was a lot of grant funding that came out because there's so much suicide with our veterans and our service members in Massachusetts. So I was placed on the Governor's Advisory Board, and we did a lot of research to find out what do we need to do to take care of our veterans. A lot of veterans in Massachusetts are struggling financially. They do not know if they should pay their mortgage, their medical bills, or eat. So there are a lot of different things that were introduced. Through this act, one of the big things was potentially doubling the tax benefit if you're a homeowner. So if you're 100% service connected, you get $1,000 off of your real estate bill. If you are anywhere from 10% to 90%, you get $400 off of your real estate bill. The local option is to double that. The doubling part is a local, that's in your coffers. So we need to figure out where those numbers come from. So we were looking at the numbers, and please forgive me if I pick up my cell phone because I have all of those numbers that came from the VA in an Excel spreadsheet. But we have 348 veterans in Belchertown that have a service-connected disability. Not all of those are 100% service-connected. However, if we assume that they are all 100% service-connected and they're all getting $1,000 off of their real estate bills, and we double it for everybody across the board, we're under $40,000 that the town is responsible for. Now, the benefit of that, in my opinion, in working with veterans, in working with a type of public assistance, in trying to house homeless veterans, and all of that is we will allow aging veterans to stay in their home. We will allow younger veterans to move into Belchertown and allow their children to come through our schools and pay their taxes and buy their groceries in Belchertown and give to our community. And it's only, let's say we round it to 400 veterans, $40,000 maximum that we're talking about. These veterans will not be taxed out of their home. The majority of the veterans that I work with as your veterans agent, my charge is to take care of what's called Chapter 115, it's type of public assistance. The majority of the folks that I work with may or may not have a type of public assistance, but they are not homeowners. So we're still going to assist them, but there is not necessarily a big return to the town when we're helping them. These folks that are homeowners are going to stay here. They're going to live here. They're going to pay their taxes. They're still going to have to pay a tax, even if we give them enough $1,000 off. They're going to pay their utility bills. They're going to buy their groceries here. They're going to stop at Pride and they're going to get their gas here. And they're going to go out and, buy dinner here and everything. So they're still putting into the town, and we're allowing them to live here, we're helping to make sure that they don't get taxed out of their own home. And please understand that I'm a veteran that lives here in town. I'm a single mom. I'm 100% service connected. So 100% transparency. This would affect me as well. But this would allow me to make sure that my kid stays here and she goes through school here, and we pay for piano lessons here and anything that happens here. This is a great benefit to our veterans here, whether they be low income or just, the average middle class, and they're just trying to survive in this world. But these are folks that I have a veteran who has lost a leg. We have veterans who are MST, military sexual trauma. We have PTSD. We have folks who cannot work. Or we have folks that can work, but only part-time because of the anxiety that comes with their service-connected disability. We have folks who have lost limbs. We have folks who have lost a lot of things, but they've given to us. And in my humble opinion, I know I'm only one, and I'm pretty loud, but what they've given to us in this entire world, I think that doubling this, which this act has given us the ability to do so is pretty small in the world. So we have at least 10% of this community as veterans, which is a huge amount of our veteran community. I come before here from Springfield, a very small percentage was veterans. Here we have 10%. There's at least 1,500 veterans in our community that are veterans. So only asking for from 1,500 to 348 who have a service-connected disability, and assuming that all of them are 100%, which is a huge assumption, is a pretty, I know, forgive me, I know we're at a deficit, but these veterans have given more than most of us can even imagine giving in peacetime or in wartime. So I hope I'm not rambling. I hope I'm answering your questions. But please ask me another question if I'm not answering it right.
I'm a huge supporter. I said it at our last meeting. I believe it's on a tape somewhere. Huge supporter. Thank you for your service. And I am well traveled, and I have been in places that do not have the freedoms that we enjoy here. And thank you all for everybody that served. I think that I'm fully supportive of the HEROES Act. I also believe that any monies that are discounted from the taxes will end up coming back to the town through people being able to maintain their homes, pay their taxes, shop at Stop and Shop and buy food,
Yes.
you know, like your basic necessities of life. It'll be a boon to many people, which is basically just essentially being able to live for many others. I'm a huge supporter of it. I would do it in a heartbeat, and I think we should do everything we can to find the funds to do that. And again, on the backside of that, I'm very confident that the town of Belchertown would then see those revenues put right back into the town.
If I may, I apologize. I hope this doesn't take time. So the majority of the veterans that we have in town are older adults.
Mhm.
There are a lot of veterans in town that are, I feel I'm an older adult, but that are family age adults, so they have children going through school. So my daughter is about to start piano tomorrow. So we are feeding into all of the things that we have to pay into town. The older adults are paying into things that they can do at the senior center. And then the younger veterans that are moving into town, and we do have quite a few. I have a lot of folks that call and say, hey, listen, my family's moving in, what do I do? They are going to be participating in school activities, in all of these really fun younger things that we have for the kids to participate in. And I really hope that the little bit that we might spend on doubling this will find a really good return.
Oh, absolutely. I 100% believe it will. I really do.
How many years ago has it been updated, you know, the last time?
I'm sorry, say again.
When was it last updated, like veteran benefits, you know?
What in veteran benefits?
Any of this stuff?
So these numbers I have are from the end of 2024, and I'm happy to share them.
No. Like, when's the last time
If they
service
were
members
increased.
were increased with the benefits that they received by the town, like through a taxation abatement?
I have been a veteran service officer for 18 years. I have loved being here for 5 years. And prior to my being here was 13 years in Springfield, and that has not been increased. The ability to increase it has not been, offered as a local option in public. I mean, any town can do whatever they want, but telling a town that you can spend whatever money you want is kind of hard to do. This has not been introduced in, at the very least, my 18 years in being a veteran service officer in this world. That is the best answer I can give you. I can't tell you past that, because before that I was a college student and then I was in Afghanistan.
But you're saying that it looks super cushioned, it would be like a $40,000 impact to
The
Belchertown?
maximum.
Right,
should
super
be.
cushioned.
Yes.
Like if we really layer it and
Assume,
cushion it.
so we currently, the numbers that I have are, let me explain where my numbers come from. Our local Senate representatives are able to request those numbers from the federal side of the VA. They got the numbers, I have the spreadsheet, and I'm happy to forward it. The total amount of folks that we have receiving a VA benefit is 348. We will assume that all 348 can get the maximum benefit.
Of course.
And then we'll super assume it's 400.
Right.
So that is where we get that duplicating it, doubling it. The maximum is 1,000. So if we double it for everybody, it's 1,000 for all of them. That's 40,000.
Right.
That is, the number will be much less than that. In those numbers, we include death benefits, DIC, which the VA dependency and indemnity compensation. We also have Gold Star parents. We have service-connected disabilities. Anywhere from 10 to 90% service-connected is only $400. So when we double them, they only get to $800.
Right.
If you're 100% service-connected, that's a total disability. Goes from 1,000 to 2,000. So when I give you that number, I'm assuming the maximum with the maximum amount of veterans. We have at least 1,500 veterans in town, but as of December of 2024, we only had 348 receiving a service-connected disability, and that's where I get my numbers from. I hope that answers your
It
question.
does, thank you. Mike, do you have any questions, even though you're not deliberating?
No.
How about John?
Oh, I see our former veterans agent back in the back room over there. I guess I have one question for him, if that's okay. from the chair. When's the last time you saw an increase in your years of service to Belchertown?
It was 400,000 in 2007 when I started, and I was told that goes way back in the 90s.
Wow.
So, your best bet is to ask one of your legislators, and they can give you an exact date when that was legislated from the state.
I appreciate that.
We started the same year, only he was here. He gave you more years than I have so far, but the same year.
I appreciate both of you. Thank you.
Yes, thank you so much. And how about Katie? Do you have anything to add or ask or contribute?
No, I don't. I'm in support of it, though.
You're in support of it. And how about Angela?
Yeah, I wanted to say that I'm in support of it for sure, and that sounds like a great benefit.
How about Nicole? Would you like to say anything as our liaison? You say whatever you want to say.
No, I'm also in support of it. I think it's great.
Okay.
Thank you, Steve.
How about Steve? What do you have to say, Steve?
Sorry.
We'll wait for
We're gonna
last.
cut you off.
I didn't know Charlie was gonna be here, so I wish I had known.
Oh, Steve, I'm so sorry.
I would have confirmed with you before. So, first and foremost, I just want to say that, I want to thank all of our veterans for their service and their sacrifices, and how much I support what they've done for our country and our community and us as individuals. One of the greatest regrets I have in life is not being able to serve. But that's, a longer story. So we won't go there tonight. But I guess the question I have is, what provisions are you recommending or supporting? Is it clause 22I or 22J or both?
So we kind of looked at that, and I would say both, but please excuse me because I'm not a numbers person, I'm a veterans person. So anything that can benefit my veterans, I'm all for. With respect to the basic part of it, where we just double it and we're not talking about the CPI going forward, I believe is financially doable. The rest of it, I have to acquiesce to the finance department, and I apologize for that because
What would the rest of it entail?
it goes up annually based on COLA. So as the taxes increase, the respective veteran would get a little bit more of a discount. It wouldn't just be, for example, if somebody is between 10 and 90% service connected right now, they get a 400% service connection, or discount on their abatement on their taxes. But it's more than $400. It comes out to about like $415, or forgive me because it's not perfect, but there's a little bit more because it's based on COLA. And I don't know if maybe you can assist me with that.
So
You know the numbers better than I do.
Would the 40,000 at the outside maximum this year be the baseline start, and then if we enact both parts, the COLA would kick in subsequent
It
years?
could potentially go up little by little each year.
In
based on
subsequent
COLA.
years, though.
Yes, ma'am.
Okay.
And you could vote in another
not-
$1,000 every year if you want
Yes.
to. You can't zero out anybody, if that makes sense either.
But so the baseline we were talking about right now, though, even if we combined both parts, is at the outside like 40,000.
The baseline right now, in looking at the numbers of what we have for service-connected disabled veterans, as well as Gold Star parents, anybody who's eligible for the veteran abatement. That is surviving spouses, surviving children, disabled veterans, and Gold Star parents or spouses. The maximum is 40,000, really, in looking at the numbers. But
Even if we adopted both parts.
yes,
Okay.
but I apologize. Anything past that, I'm sorry.
No, that's fine. I appreciate the information.
Steve has better numbers.
You have better numbers? Eric?
Yeah, I need to jump in here because there's certainly some disagreement between what we're hearing tonight and what our assessor's office had put together for an analysis, and I'll give you a copy of this. So I gave you a sheet, colored sheet.
You did. I don't have it.
Yeah. This is all of the exemptions the town offers, so it includes seniors over 70, disabled veterans, spouses of veterans, disabled veterans with different clauses, and exemptions for blind. So you can see what the assessor's office is managing here. The items in yellow are the total liability to the town as it presently sits in FY24. We don't have FY25 numbers yet because we're not done with the fiscal year. So last year, totality, there was $237,000 worth of exemptions. We were reimbursed by the state at an amount of $172,092. Our total liability was $38,144. If we increase this by adopting the HERO Act Clause 22I, the liability increases $5,532.50, according to our assessors. The issue with these voluntary clauses is that they are not state reimbursable at this time. So unless something has changed, we would be on the hook for the full amount.
Of the 5,500.
Correct. Now, if you go further over, the adoption of 22J is estimated by our assessors. The impact of the town would be $121,715.
So why is the jump? What is the variance between the two that would create that jump, like in summary?
Well, that's where there's a disagreement in numbers because, and I'm not going to disagree with our veterans agent. She's using numbers from the state, and these are from our assessors, so we need to have these two databases
Talk to each other.
talk to each other because there's something.
Something I missed, and right,
Yeah.
like,
Yeah, but the jump is 22J is 100% on the tax exemption.
what do you mean? So that 22J would mean that any disabled veterans would have 100% of their taxes be
Yeah,
exempt?
It doubles, whatever their percentage doubles, 100%. So if they get $1,000 off, they get $2,000. If they get $500 off, they get $1,000 off. That's what 100%.
So I know you had 40, we have 121 on this end, so before we make any.
And I have right here, if I disabled veterans with 100% disability rating is, with $1,000 granted, is at 62. So if we doubled that,
121.
right?
I don't know where the monies are.
Yeah, so, we just need to have some further conversations.
I am not here to argue.
No, that's
No,
fine.
All I can provide you is the numbers that the state has given me, and Steve, I'm so sorry if I.
No, that's okay, because I think we need to get it right.
For example, with that, let me tell you, with full transparency, I'm 100% service-connected disabled veteran. I reside in Belchertown and I own my home. I get $1,000 off my real estate taxes. If this were to pass, I would get $2,000 off my real estate taxes. $1,000 is state mandated, that is reimbursed. The other $1,000 is going to be in the coffers of the town. So that is something that we do need to understand, that that is not reimbursed by the state. So it's a matter of how many are in each category and what specifically it's going to cost. And my numbers are only based on getting a spreadsheet that came from our local rep and senate on, at the end of 2024 annual year, not fiscal year, how many service-connected veterans we have. It does not break it down by 10%. And when I say that, do you know what 10%, when I say a 10% service-connected or 100% okay. Please forgive me, I don't mean to insult your intelligence. I just live in a veterans world with all of those, the nomenclature. So anywhere from 10 to 90 is going to get $400 off their real estate taxes. We would be doubling it, and each of them, their $400 additional would be out of our pockets in Belchertown. And anybody who is 100% service connected, they get $1,000 off. We would be doubling it, and their additional $1,000 would, as Steve said, be out of our coffers. That is not reimbursed by the state, and that is why this is such a big local thing, and that's why the governor said, you know, figure it out locally. We're not giving you the money, so it's on you.
So maybe, so we're gonna have to have another meeting. We're gonna have to have another meeting before the end of next week. And so would we be able to have more information? Would we be able to have more information to do another meeting next week? Or is that?
I guess we could always take the high number, in worst case, become under, and we can, select board are the ones that have to vote on it, in a sense, right?
Well, yeah, I think we just need to get together with Andrea in the assessing office, compare notes, and see, you know, where we have this difference. You know, it's not an argument.
Yeah.
No, look at our.
Right, like I'm saying, there's,
Yeah.
no, I get it, and I see there's 62 that get 1,000 granted, so if we doubled that, it would be 62,000. I'm seeing surviving spouses would remain the same, what have you, on the sheet you gave me. 116 veterans get $400, would get an additional 400. I'm not gonna trust my brain, so I'm getting closer to the 121. Quickly, I mean, I'm at like 113.4 if I do those just quick, and I'm sure there's some other,
So, you know, the assessing office is looking at actual cases and, you know, what their exemptions are. So I don't know if the state database is just doing generalizations.
The numbers that I'm getting are not people who have applied to our town. It's just numbers of folks who have a service-connected disability. So the numbers that you are getting directly from the treasurer's office and the assessor's office are specific to who actually has.
Okay, so they're probably right.
I would
yeah,
rely
I'm coming
more
closer
on
to that 121
Because
if
you
I
can
start.
claim a veteran benefit if you don't live in this town, but you have land in this town.
Yes, yes.
Okay, that makes
I
sense.
still, regardless, am super supportive. I thank all of our veterans for giving me and all of us the ability to live in this great country, right? Like what you all have sacrificed to do that, I can't thank you enough. I really can't. I know we're in a really tough fiscal situation, as is towns throughout the Commonwealth and across the country and everywhere else. But I'm still in favor of this. I really am. I would love for us to be able to find a way. And I do think that Belchertown would get an ROI of, again, homes being able to be maintained, food being able to be purchased for themselves and their children, you know, gas in the vehicle to get to a part-time job or a job or whatever, like that, using our gas stations, using our grocery stores, using our, whatever, like, I think most of the monies would go back into the town, in my humble opinion. Anybody else got anything?
And I was gonna say, it could also be a draw, definitely to entice new young families, veterans to move into town.
Well, that's an interest, yes, it is, isn't it? That would be something that would maybe, be like, I can move into town based on the fact that I'm gonna have that savings.
Right.
You can say anything you
Can I
want.
ask a math question?
You certainly
So how
can.
did you get to the 40,000? Because if you said 348 are service connected, they'd be getting an additional $1,000 from the town, right?
Right, but the majority of them are not 100% service
Okay, but
connected.
now, oh, okay,
We're assuming that a much lower percentage of that is service
so
connected.
it's not 348 that's service connected.
They are service connected, but they're not getting $1,000.
Okay. So if we did the math, 348, right, times 1,000,
Oh, that's a way higher.
340.
Yes, that's a
Yeah.
way higher number. The majority of the veterans in our town that are service connected are getting between ultimately 0 and 90%. Only 10 to 90% qualify for a discount. That's the $400. The 100% requires a very severe disability. And I hate to put myself in this category, but I'm 100% service connected. In fact, I think that the only job I can hold is a veterans agent. If you put me anywhere else, I'd probably be fired the next day. The majority of our veterans, I'd say at least 85 to 90% are going to only get the $400, which would double to $800, and not the $1,000 that would double to $2,000.
But I think the max cushion, the max is the 348, which probably means that the 122 is.
It is.
Oh, I would
Yeah,
acquiesce to
'cause
what
even
our-
Nicole, can I show you?
Even if you do 348 times the 400, it's 139. Yeah.
I am happy to say whatever our treasurer's office and assessor's office has, they've got the numbers because they know how many people have applied for this disability abatement. I'm presenting only what I've been given by our local legislature when I asked what the VA had for numbers.
So either way, we're not gonna be any
And
higher than
I'm-
121.
Right,
Doesn't
Yes.
make a difference.
right, exactly.
If
I'm not in a fight to tell you,
Oh, no, yeah,
our
no,
assessor's office is amazing, and they communicate with me and they send veterans to me and everything. So if you're getting numbers from the assessor's office and the treasurer's office, whatever they are telling you is applied, I'm gonna back them up. The numbers that I'm providing are only just what I've received from our local representative and senate when they tell me how many veterans we have that have a service-connected disability, are receiving DIC, a death benefit. If a spouse, a husband or a wife, their veteran has passed away due to a service-connected disability, they're eligible for an abatement as well. So there's different types of benefits. I'm only able to provide you those numbers.
And we have a small room and a small amount of people on the meeting, so I'm gonna ask if anybody in the room would like to have any comments or questions, or on the go-to meeting.
Does Katie leave?
Katie's coming back.
Oh.
She had to hop off. She's coming back. No?
So just so you understand the financial impacts.
Mhm.
Our net available revenue this year was $941,752. That was split 70-30 with the schools. So $121,715 would have to come off the top of that net revenue, which would result in a further reduction in the school's budget of $85,200, and the town $36,514. But that's what we're facing. And we can't make that up in an override.
Yeah.
If it fails. It would have to be in our base budgets before we go to town meeting.
Any thoughts on where else the money?
We are putting, what is it, $130,000 into stabilization this year, right, from free cash? Would that be an option as a backup plan?
Well, that'd be a recommendation to the select board. We are putting in, $125,586.
I don't know,
I just,
really, 'cause-
I guess I just, I'm a veteran, I know it impacts me.
Excuse me, $226,645.
I know it impacts me, and a lot of you don't know me, but I was a flight medic, so I took care of a lot of these troops. So you can't put a price tag on.
Yeah.
On it, that's all. Sorry.
I'm not advocating
No.
against it, I'm just telling you.
No.
what the impacts are that we're facing, so.
I don't think it can come off the top, especially this year. Like hopefully in the future, we will have things in place to generate additional revenues to be spread throughout the town, throughout the school, throughout the, whatever. I really struggle because I just think it's so important to honor those who serve. And I'm also well aware that the majority of those who serve that are 100% disabled or even partially disabled struggle to maintain full-time employment, funds. They just don't have the resources after all they gave up. So I get it's a really bad fiscal climate and I'm super fiscally conservative, as anyone that knows me knows. But this is just something that I think we should consider maybe looking
Yeah,
at.
I appreciate the suggestion that we would take it from
Right, like not off the top.
reserves, because I don't think I can tolerate it anymore.
Yeah.
No,
No.
I don't think anybody
School
can.
department can, so.
Right. But it's
It's just a thought.
I really think the impact would be significant. I do, and I do think the town would benefit from it. And I'm only one opinion, certainly, and we're just discussing it amongst ourselves to, and then vote on it to then recommend that we do it to the select board. I think the select board would have to then agree to put it on a warrant and then it would go to town meeting. How's that go?
Does it have to be 100%? Could we start with a smaller amount and graduate it up every year?
Well, that's what I had asked Steve, because I know it's so tough this year, so I had called Steve and asked him, and it was late when I called him and asked him. But if we pushed it back a year, would we at least be able to do something this year, like part of it, and then add the second layer next year, having more time to really prepare for that, if that would be an option that would be more amenable. But you have a conflicted answer on that, or not a full answer on that?
No, I didn't get a full answer on that. But, it's certainly a viable recommendation to accept. I gave away my paperwork, but.
I'm sorry.
Clause 221I, this year, which would be a lower impact than in 22J next year. I don't know. The way that this is written, this is optional additional increase up to 100%. So I'm assuming, yes, it should be a lower percentage.
May I?
Right.
But I don't know if that's,
Maybe it's 50% this year, or even 25% this year, and then moving to 50%, 75%, 100.
I listening to what everybody has said, I support what you're saying. I just don't know how we're gonna.
I get
If
it.
we're gonna take it out of reserves.
Or not take it out, because God knows we don't want to take anything out, but just maybe not put so much in
Into it.
this year, knowing that moving forward, we're gonna have to find other options to accomplish that. I'm sorry, what were you gonna say?
I apologize, I'm so sorry, Steve. My office is a spending office on all of the numbers that you see. However, I do VA benefits as well. So I make sure I'm accredited and I can legally do VA claims for folks. So I'm able to get folks 100% service connected. So every month they get $4,000 in, even if they have no other type of income. So even if on the books, what you see, I'm spending, there's still money coming in. So there is a benefit to the VSO. So I'm not trying to get my position terminated because I'm a spender. But yes, so the governor ultimately, knowing that the state did not have the money to back this, but wanted to make sure that it was loud and clear that she wants this to happen. We're able to do 10%, 20%, 100%, anywhere up to there. And, each town, we can decide, and I know this isn't gonna happen, we can decide if you're a veteran, you just don't pay excise tax. I know that's not gonna happen, because I know the way the taxes work. We need it, we need the roads, we need the schools and all of those things. So yes, I can tell you definitely that we can do a smaller amount. But I also understand that nothing is free. So we also need to find out where those dollars are coming from. So even if this is not something that we can do this year, I would love to partner and assist in a way to find that where these dollars can come from in the next fiscal year and assist in doing so. But to answer you, yes, I do know that definitely. I just came from, this may not matter, Western Mass Veteran Service Officers Association, anything from Worcester to North Adams. I just came from that meeting today. And one of my partner VSOs, Veteran Service Officers, their community couldn't afford doing that double. So they did a 50% of that. So yes, you absolutely can do that. But in doing so, it's not the governor saying, we're gonna give you any money.
Well, they're not giving us any money anyway,
No.
right?
It's you being findings, having to decide where that money is gonna come from. And that is also the governor saying, we want you to do this, but we're not gonna help you do this. And I respect how hard that is in a place where we're struggling to find where the dollars are coming from.
So maybe, does anyone have any thoughts about, and Steve, anybody have any thoughts about Angela? Thoughts about like maybe trying to start out much lower the first year and work our way up since we are in such financial, hello.
As a suggestion, that I'm Rick Hickey, 350 Amherst Road. And I am a disabled vet, so I have to disclose that I have an interest in this, but I'm talking in general. Seeing the financial difficulty, why don't we keep it the same the first year, and then 10%, and then by the 11th year, we're at the full double. Because then you don't have to worry about where you get this money, because right now the town financially is struggling.
It really is. It
Yes.
really is.
So make this year 0 year, but have the vote in place so that we can plan for the following year. The $1,000 people will get 1,100, and the $400 people get 440. And then each year after that, it goes up in increments to double it. So it's a small increase. That's just.
But it's acknowledging that it's acknowledging
Yeah.
something.
Right, because right now, we're looking for nickels.
Right, we are.
Shaking the couch.
We are.
Yes.
What does anybody on the finance committee think of that?
I like the idea of this, of like a staggered rollout.
I don't know why you let him retire.
It happens to everybody. I recommend it.
At least I wouldn't have that fish in my office if you didn't.
What are your thoughts, John?
I think we do something. I mean, I'm always going to advocate for the veterans, obviously, get them
Right.
everything they're due and owed, but we got to give them something. We can't give them nothing. Does that make sense?
Or, so what would it
But
look
even,
like?
I feel like even 10% is like a slap in the face a little bit. That's just my,
What if we did like 20% this year and then increase 20% a year over 5 years?
you should double it every year. I mean, you can go back to 100% next year, I believe, if you wanted to.
If the resources were
Yeah,
allowed.
right, isn't that true?
You
Like,
can't go back though, I'm assuming. Like
you
if
can't go backwards once it's set. I
Once
think
it's set, it's set.
I do believe you need to have in our area, and please forgive me, a town vote no matter what, but our treasurer and assessor should also be part of that in anything that goes
Oh,
forward.
we're just deliberating amongst ourselves. We have no real power when it comes to this. We're just making a recommendation.
I'm the low person on the totem pole. If you say, should we give veteran, my job as the veterans agent
Is
is
to
gonna
say
be
yes,
to-
right.
To yell, yes.
And so really, this is something that we've decided, because of its importance to everyone on the finance committee, including Katie, who had to hop off for a minute. We decided as a finance committee to put it on our agenda to take a vote as a recommendation, and then have our vote be a recommendation to the select board as to whether or not they want to pursue it, if they want to put it on the warrant article, if they want to bring it to town meeting. We have no control over anything past how we professionally feel in our capacity as a finance committee to
If
just make a
there-
recommendation.
If there's any other documentation or numbers or anything that I can provide, please do call on me. I am absolutely able to call on our local senator reps to get any federal numbers or local numbers. But our assessor is amazing and.
Oh, yeah, and it's, yeah, and I get it, and it's a lot. But so Steve, what would that 20% look like?
Off the top of my head, it'd be about 11,000.
Well, no, I know that,
I
but.
mean, 22,000.
But like, what would that look like in implementation? Like,
Well, I'm
What
assuming, so 22, the $5,000, I mean, it sounds like that's a done deal.
right,
The 22J, 20% of 121,000 is $24,000. So 70%, 70, 30. Does that work out to?
what do we have going at the OPEB this year? I'm sorry, I don't have a lot of my papers. Sorry.
Yeah, I have it, I just need to find it.
30,000, I think. It was,
So it would be about.
I mean, because potentially, but if we didn't take it off the top and instead we elected this year to use OPEB money and not fund OPEB money this year and use that, so we don't take, I mean, I really struggle with taking anything away from the stabilization fund whatsoever.
I think, I'm not gonna guess.
I think we have 194 roughly on stabilization, OPEB is 32.
How much
So
That's the
OPEB,
goal.
we were gonna put 32,378 in this year.
So it's,
into OPEB? So that would be, if we recommended that we only put the net of that after the 5 and the 24, which would be pretty much zero. Like, what does everybody think about that? Like, OPEB is a problem we're never gonna solve. It's what, 30 million for a liability?
yeah,
We've definitely made good faith effort, put money in last year. But it's a problem we're never gonna solve. In fact, the entire state of Massachusetts and every city and town is not gonna be able to solve that deficit. Would you disagree with that, Steve?
No, I don't disagree with that. I think we're just gonna keep chipping away at it.
Right, like 5,000, 7,000, 30,000, like it's 30 million. What is, I don't know, I'm making that up. It could be 24 million. I don't know.
Yeah, I mean, ideally, I would like to, find a revenue source that's over and above our normal taxation, like a solar
Right,
panel. When they start making pilot payments, just direct it straight to
boom.
them. Something to that effect would make more sense.
Because it is our liability, but I think that as the state goes, it's my understanding that as the state goes all 351 towns, the majority of them are in similar circumstances to us, to the point where the state was even looking at some things regarding that. And we just want to make sure we're doing a little something so that we keep our bond rating up, we keep our credit rating up, we keep all of that up. So if we need to borrow, we're looked at favorably.
Mhm.
But I don't know. Those are just the thoughts that I'm having off the top of my head, which will be held against me, I'm sure, at some point in the future.
Well, there's OPEB and stabilization are generalized into a term called reserves.
Right,
So I guess you could leave it up to the select board, if you just want to take it out of reserves, the 20%.
I don't know, I feel like it's important. Does anyone want to fight me on it? No? No? Okay. Did Katie come back yet?
So I'll make a motion that we recommend the select board take it or act on it.
Well,
That
so
makes sense.
that we have to motion a little bit more specific. What specifically are we motioning as our recommendation? That we would, so does what, who feels what about the percent? No, there's nothing for this year. There's 10% for this year, there's 20% for this year. And like what would you recommend be that, would be over the course of 10 years, 11 years, 5 years? What do you think about
I
that?
think we do 20% this year, revisit it next year once we know more with the budget.
Okay, so the motion would be, do you have any thoughts on that,
So
Angela?
it would be 20% this year, then 20% next year too, or we would
We
reevaluate it?
reevaluate next year.
Okay,
Because you can go up, you just can't go back.
right, so it still would be a minimum of 20 next year.
Right.
Yeah,
I think,
okay,
yeah,
but not a 20 additional,
right, it's
so,
20,
May I ask,
Yeah.
you're talking 20% of the 1,000 and not 20% of the taxes, right? So that would be potentially 1,200 for the maximum and not
yes.
20% of the maximum taxes.
Correct, it would
Yes.
be correct.
I'm
Yeah.
not a numbers
No, that's
person, I'm
fine.
a
Yeah,
vote
no, I
veteran
think
person.
Because
That's
next
good.
year we would still have the 20%,
Right.
but then we would revisit it to see if we could add any. more.
Exactly.
correct, we could plan for it better.
Yeah,
So it sounds like you want to adopt chapter 22I as is.
Yeah.
Adopt chapter 22J, a level of an increase up to an additional 20%,
Yes.
a year for 5 years.
Well, no, 20% in FY 26,
And we'll reevaluate and
and then reevaluate, kind of like we do with the, like we went from the 80-20 to the 60-40, like trying to get down to the 70-30 for the, free cash breakout. I think that would be something similar, like we revisit it. So, do you want to make the motion?
I make a motion that we adopt 22I, chapter 22I this year. Then we adopt 22J at the 20% level,
Of the 20%
not the
of
100,
the 20% of
of whatever the chapter,
The optional,
the
of the
option.
optional, thank you, of the optional,
optional increase.
and then revisit
In FY
in
27.
FY 26 any subsequent additions to the 20%. Do I hear a second?
second.
All in favor? Aye.
I,
And Mike, you understand?
You get to say it.
Are you-
Oh, I have to say that.
Yeah,
Yeah,
you
I have
do.
to abstain because I
Okay.
didn't approve this part.
And Angela was not able to come back, so it's going to,
Kate.
I'm Kate, I'm sorry, Angela. I'm looking at you, looking at thing, so it,
3,
three,
01. Oh.
no, it's
No.
3, 1 absent, 1 abstain.
Will you be able to get a memo to the select board
Sure,
with the recommendation?
sure.
Thank you.
And so,
Thank you for your time.
yeah, thank you so much. I thank you for all your service and coming in and
I
everybody's
apologize,
service
I'm
in
just
here.
I'm a veteran, so I have to tell you all about guns and things, about
No
top
such thing
numbers.
as just a combat veteran.
I have to rely on what my senator gave me.
No, thank you so much. And so the next up on the agenda is the discussion of the potential Proposition 2.5 override with information available to date. Steve Williams, come on down.
So there's really not a lot of additional information to date. We had
I know it was like 2 days.
meeting Monday, my number is going to be around 320. I'm looking at any known obligations that we're going to have over the next 2 years. I'll present them to the board. I asked the school department to do the same. I think that the The big issue is going to be the procedure for 2.5 override. We need to have a town meeting vote to authorize the spending. This is different from an exclusion. For an exclusion, we go to town meeting when we ask for authorization to borrow funds.
Right.
And then we need a 2/3 vote on the ballot to actually borrow. With an override, we go to town meeting to approve the contingency budget based on, additional funds. And then we go to the ballot, which is a majority, and we ask for the ability to.
Is it a straight majority, not a 2/3?
I believe so, yeah. And in that case, it's, you threw me off, what was I saying? So it's a majority, and that'll allow us to increase our tax levy by that, whatever amount we put forward.
And 2.5 is permanent, like people have to understand the 2.5 override is
That
permanent.
is correct. Yeah, once it's on the books, it's
Right,
there.
it's permanent. And so that would be a warrant question that we would vote on.
Right, so what we need is a base budget, or what they would term a non-contingency budget, which would be within the constraints of available funding. And then we need a budget that's considered a contingency budget upon passage of the article at the ballot.
So Brian, will the school be presenting a base budget within the available funding that we have now?
Yes, the number that we was, the yes. And then we'll present one,
With the 2.1 million?
yes.
Additional.
So I need to, see, I wasn't in the office today, I was in the school, so I didn't get the email. So school committee voted, Wednesday, Thursday, Tuesday, the 2.1 million. However, there was some discrepancy about the numbers. It didn't match my number that I had from Jill last time. So I gotta reach out to you about that.
Okay.
And then I got some news today, so we may be meeting next Thursday. And we'll vote on the number.
You gonna share the news?
So,
Is it good or bad?
I don't know yet, I gotta talk to the school committee. Let's think positive. Let's be positive.
Let's be positive, positive.
Positive
people.
potatoes.
So,
yeah, your number's probably slightly off because Joe's been updating the income and expense sheet, a
Okay,
little here and there. She's out the rest of the week, so why don't we plan on getting together next week to iron this out?
okay.
I would like to have everything wrapped up by the end of next week, just so I can get it to the select board, expeditiously.
Yeah, but,
So it sounds like that'll work,
yeah. But just to be clear, they did take a vote Tuesday, but they are willing to meet Thursday.
so you are gonna have two budgets, one including the additional monies being requested and one operating within the constraints of the available
Yes,
funding?
yes.
Okay,
I'll have both of those.
okay. And so if the warrant article to pursue a Proposition 2.5 passes by majority,
Mhm.
what are the next steps? I just want to get it out.
So there's a whole bunch of different scenarios, but if the budgets are passed at town meeting and the ballot fails, then the 2.5 override does not take effect and we fall back on the base budget, the non-contingency budget. If the budgets don't pass at town meeting and the ballot passes, then we have that override becomes effective. The money goes unspent.
At town meeting?
No, if the budgets at town meeting, the contingency budgets at town meeting fail,
Okay,
the ballot passes.
okay,
At the
okay,
election.
at a later date when the ballot, because that's a separate meeting, later date, balloted question, nothing to do with town meeting.
Correct,
Okay, so we're there and that passes there,
correct.
but the budget, the contingency budget did not pass at town meeting. We have those unspent funds that just
We're
sit there?
basically overtaxing our taxpayers.
Right. Okay,
So it's tricky. It is, and
and
there's a lot
so
of parts that have to come together.
if it does go to ballot and it doesn't pass. So in order, so if it goes to ballot and it doesn't pass, then what?
Then we fall back onto the non-contingency based budget.
Okay, so we would have that. If the budget, I really hope people understand that if the budget does not pass at town meeting, then we revert back to the budget we have this year and nobody gets anything extra.
Yes,
Like
if both budgets fail,
Right,
we
If
fall back
we
to,
fall back to FY25 budgets and nobody gets anything extra.
until we go back to town meeting and correct it. If
And then the cost of each of these meetings ranges from 20,000 to 60,000 that we would also then have to take out of our revenues. If we had to go back to have another town meeting, we would be looking at, again, anywhere from 20 to 60,000 to hold that town meeting. And that money would have to then,
So a normal town meeting runs us, under 10,000. We have 300
clickers, I get it.
We have registrar workers, we have a moderator, we have a council, which is paid. We usually have a police officer standing by. When we plan for these mega meetings, we're planning for full occupancy at our high school to 2 rooms. So that requires us to rent additional clickers for voting.
And sound systems.
So if the clickers to rent them are $10 a piece, so if we need 2,000 of them, you're now looking at 20,000 clickers to rent. They're $30 a piece to buy.
Right.
It doesn't make sense to me to rent them, but the bigger issue is how many times are we gonna have a mega meeting?
We're not.
Well, we said that last year. And luckily we didn't rent them last year, otherwise it would have been lost.
Because we didn't have even though we anticipated having more, we really didn't have that much more. Everybody was able to get clickers.
So,
But right here, this request that we'll talk about in a minute, it's you're adding $46,000. I got $56,000. And then it's also to go to the ballot, to have a meeting, a ballot, that's about 20,000.
yeah, so we have, well, those costs, are not gonna be as bad with this because we're putting this on an existing election.
Oh, yeah, okay, it is, okay.
So it's not a special
Okay.
election. If it was a special election,
Okay.
there would be some significant expense there. So Terry Camerlin already has a quote for the clickers.
Which meeting is it going on? What ballot?
The May 19th election.
So what happens if it doesn't pass at town meeting, it'll still be in the ballot? Is that gonna be legal?
Yeah, it's illegal.
I was just curious.
So the clickers are 20,000. The hardware or software to support them is another, I forget exactly what it was, but it works up to
22,005 and then 23,005 for the media that we will need to make sure everyone
Now that's based on last year's media quote.
might go up.
We're still talking to them. I don't think it's gonna go up. I think it'll go down slightly because there might be some ability to utilize some of the existing equipment in the building. We're talking about that now. So I'm hoping that it's gonna be lower than that, but worst case is I'm figuring this is gonna be a pretty pricey
Right,
meeting. So what I would like to do is take it out of the reserve fund.
right. Well, we have the transfer here. I think that I really don't think we'd have a choice. I mean, certainly we can discuss it as the finance committee, but would we need to pre-approve generalized numbers or can we wait and do the transfer when we have the actual numbers?
I'd like the money to be available so we can start executing contracts as they come in.
And then what happens if it comes in lower than what the reserve fund is?
It's gonna just roll over to free cash.
Okay.
Yeah, I don't think we can, maybe there's a way to move it back, but I'm not thinking we're gonna be much under, so.
So,
Wait, May just has a clarifying question to Steve.
sure, now I have a clarifying question for you, so we'll do that.
Okay,
Triangle.
so you said the town meeting would be on the 12th, right? May
Right.
12th. And then whatever happens, this would be on the May 19th ballot. So we'll all know either way by the 19th.
Correct.
Okay.
And so I know the town is absorbing $250 a year for 4 years, the million for the Sienska, which is also weighing on me in addition to the 46 and everything else.
For the what?
Part of that.
Part of the, this James Brook School, we have to pay back that million,
Yeah,
$250 a year.
We-
You
we're
were
paying
gonna-
back half, right?
Yeah, we're only paying.
Okay, that's, you were gonna look in to
Yeah,
see
yeah,
if there, so we only have to pay, perfect. So does that decrease our liability for that this year? Because we were looking at like $250 this year and then,
No,
no?
payments next year.
Oh, it's next year?
Yep.
Oh, good. I don't know what I was thinking. It was this year. And so we only have to pay back approximately 500 instead of a million?
Yeah, a little bit under.
I forgot to circle back to.
We have an
Excellent.
interest payment this year of about 50,000.
Okay,
And the next year will be the first principal.
principal payment?
Principal and interest, yeah.
Okay, but it definitely, so we did look at that.
MSBA has already reimbursed us.
Who has that money?
It went to the town.
Correct. Yeah.
And so can we prepay? Like what happens if we prepaid with the money that they reimbursed us? Would we have any interest savings?
Well, we would, but it's a one-time expense. I know it's over 5 years, but it's a one-time expense, and then that tax burden would just continue on afterwards.
What do you mean? No, so if, would we,
You mean
would the town,
put
if
it in
the
the
town is, now, if the town, if the school has already reimbursed us their portion, or the MC, whoever,
Yeah.
reimburses their portion, and we have those funds, we have par funds that equal the amount they reimbursed us. If we paid the loan down by that amount, will it save us any interest?
We did pay it down by that amount.
Oh, you did? All right, well, there you go.
Yeah, loan's only for the amount that's remaining.
Okay, perfect. There you go. That's what I wanted. I would like, I didn't know if it was simple interest, if it was whatever
That's why we only
interest.
have
and-
interest this year.
Okay, that makes sense.
I'll make a motion that we transfer $46,000 from the reserve fund to. pay
Well, I gotta
for-
read this,
Oh,
but then
sorry.
you can make a motion.
Okay.
I'm sorry. So, because it's on camera, but, all right, let's move it along. So we have a request for transfer from the reserve fund, and the request is hereby made for the following transfer from the reserve fund in accordance with Chapter 40, Section 6 of Massachusetts General Laws. The amount requested is $46,000 to be transferred to the elections and registration line item, general ledger line item number 10162-54240 specifically. What do we have left in, like 100? I think probably about 100.
I don't know.
Ooh, it's not on here either.
I think it's under that because we tapped into it for the engine.
I think it was like 37 plus like 20 something.
Mhm.
All right, maybe a little under 100. Okay, so there is monies left. The amount requested will be used for the May 12th, 2025 town meeting expenses, Proposition 2.5 override questions, clicker rentals for the purposes of voting, $22,500, and media for everyone to have access and like we had during COVID, based on $23,500 based on last year's quote. This expenditure is extraordinary and unforeseen for the following reasons. Funding is necessary for the attendance expected at town meeting resulting from the Proposition 2.5 override budget questions. I'm gonna need the department head to sign that.
So while I'm signing, we had deliberated over whether or not we needed clickers.
Okay,
There's 14 separate budget articles, and each one of them will have a budget and a contingency budget. And if we have 2,000 people voting, and we had to do hand counts
want
on
the
each one of
clickers.
them.
Oh, we want the clickers. Well, people will vote more how they really feel, I think, if they're voting with clickers instead of raising paddles, and the amount of labor to count paddles when it's whatever, and no. Like, that's a worth it
Is the
expense.
clicker company, gonna be there to provide any kind of technical support if needed?
Terry and Kevin Hannon have worked out the technical support issues. I don't know the answer to
I'm
that.
just wondering if there would be an extra cost to that if it's already.
It's already in there.
Is that gonna be enough clickers, you think? I'm just curious. Or what happens if there's not enough clickers? That should be my better question. What happens if there's not enough clickers? What do we do? Do some people get clickers? Some people get the hold up of paper? How do we make sure their votes are counted?
We have, the occupancy of the auditorium is around 1,483, gymnasium. The auditorium holds, right around 800. So we have 300 clickers if we rent 2,000. We can also borrow a few hundred from another community if we need to. So it's possible that, we can support.
And so what happens if more than 2,400 show up?
We can't start the meeting.
And so we would actually lose, if we had to not be able to start the meeting, it would cost us 46,000.
Correct.
Okay, I was just curious. I was just wanting to make sure that we had enough stuff. So what we're going for, I mean, people need the right to vote. So I just want to make sure we're covering all the expenses.
We're planning on setting up both rooms, we're having live audio from the auditorium into the gymnasium, and vice versa. If we're at maximum occupancy, which is
2283.
quite a bit higher than, the last big turnout we had was in 2009 for library.
Mhm.
And we had about 10% of the voters. It was about 900.
I was there, I remember, yeah.
It was true. So we're thinking, we're actually going to be, under today's numbers, 15 to 18% of the voters. So we're building a lot of contingency into this.
Okay.
Because we don't want to have the gymnasium full and still have people that need to get in. The plan is going to be fill the gymnasium, and then as soon as that's full, everybody else goes to the auditorium. If there's people lined up who are registered voters and need to get in the room, we have to accommodate them. So we won't be able to start the meeting.
So my next question is there a contingency for like fire to be on standby and ambulance? Do we have money for that figured into some of this? Just, I know
Not
it's
yet.
older people, whatever, if there's some kind of heart situation, medical emergency. Of course, we have to still worry about the town at the same time, so we probably need overtime, right?
Yeah, I'll work with the chief on that. If
Okay.
we don't have it in his budget, we'll be back.
Okay.
Potentially, we can have on-duty personnel standing by if they have to go to a call, as long as there's another
Yeah,
backup
that's-
ambulance.
I just want to make sure it's safe, and someone obviously has to do clickers, so is that a volunteer position, or is that gonna be?
The registrars and
Okay.
our IT department, there'll be overtime there, so.
Okay. I'm just making sure we have all your costs covered. I don't want you to.
I'm just.
I'm sorry, thank you.
asking- sorry. I'm just asking, are we talking about like physical clickers or like the ones that a lot of people have adopted now that are like on a smartphone?
No, they're actual clickers that we have purchased for voting purposes only. This will be our third year using them. The first year was a little tricky. Last year was really smooth. This will be year 3. So you can press like one of 2 buttons on your clicker. And Terry's up there. She will come to your house and get your clicker back if you do not turn it in at the end of the meeting. Right, Terry?
And then if like what you said, where we don't have enough clickers, and then people would do the paddles?
No, we would
Or-
not be able to hold the meeting, and we'd probably be out about
If it's more than the
$70,000.
additional 200, could we look into the virtual clicker ones that are secure but on people's smartphones?
You can't have to be by law, right? I think Terry, this question for Terry.
Yeah,
Terry, are you there?
Yes, thank you. So it is state law that you have to be present at a annual or special town meeting in order to vote. No virtual voting is allowed. So what the plan is that we do have a maximum capacity at the high school. Once we hit maximum capacity, if there are still people trying to come in to vote, the meeting will have to be postponed until a future date.
So I guess it was kind of like
No, I
a
get
double question, right? I wasn't saying like a virtual clicker that anybody could use anywhere. It's you go in and you scan the thing with your phone, and from your phone, it's almost essentially the same as a clicker physically in there. You wouldn't be able to do it anywhere else, but using your phone as the clicker.
She's saying a QR code, Terry, like having a QR code when you come into the meeting that would then acknowledge you as a registered voter
Right,
somehow.
you're physically
No,
there.
so yeah, unfortunately that doesn't work for registered voters because I do have to print the actual registered voter list and load them onto my poll pads legally 10 days before the event. That's the close of voter registration. So, and if you were to do something, and the state doesn't allow anything virtual internet, so that's not secure. So the state doesn't allow anything to go over the internet for voting purposes. And you also have to recognize that that will alienate some voters who do not have smartphones, and that's another reason why the state does not allow it. So we have to use certified clicker voting system that the state has previously approved.
Thank you, Terry.
Yeah, thanks, Terry.
You're welcome.
And can we go back? So John, can you make your motion on the reserve?
One question.
Oh, I'm sorry, go ahead. Who has a question? Go ahead.
Sorry, my name is Cindy Jakey. Just a question. I remember years ago, there was an override vote and there wasn't enough parking and people parked like everywhere trying to get to the meeting. Is there enough parking for?
I guess it's a good question with police.
That's the good news, because I think we're gonna be also voting on a grant to fix the football field, so I guess we don't have to open it up for parking, I don't know.
Or maybe down at like Chestnut and
Chestnut, so you might
Swift
get a
River,
shuttle,
they might
right?
just,
Yeah,
right.
shuttle.
Steve, they can park on the field if we're gonna get a new one.
Right, it'd be more the reason, like, well, yeah,
I have to talk to Rec about that.
yeah.
You know, the library.
So we might need overtime maybe with some, but they still have to be able to vote too, so that's the same thing. We have to allow towns, people, even though they're working, to be able to vote.
Well, I think, maybe we can get some non-student volunteers to help park cars, maybe direct people.
Maybe, or even maybe, see if the golf course wants to give us a couple of golf carts to.
Yeah, theater.
Hmm?
The senior center, the vans, maybe the van can shuttle.
If the,
It's already owned by the
part of
town.
the problem is a lot of the town employees that would be staffing these initiatives are voting residents, and they're gonna wanna be inside.
I guess that's a good question for the select board, like maybe have additional handicap select board liaison.
No pressure, Nicole, no pressure.
Another thing you can bring up.
Just outside now.
Additional, like, you'll have to caution off and probably draw a map or something. I'm just giving you guys more work, but I'm sorry, but just.
You know, you put 1,400 people in the gymnasium for graduation, they find parking.
Yeah, they do, they do.
Yeah, I think the high schools, the debt exclusions that you're referring to were in the other buildings, and they had smaller parking areas, but I think we'll make it work.
Could we not vote in batches either? Would that not work?
I don't think so.
Just to avert losing $40,000, if more people show up, we can have like a contingency plan where you vote in batches.
Because then the outcomes of those votes,
That's what I mean, like you record the first batch, right?
But then people
And then you
know,
move on.
yeah.
I don't
Well,
think,
Yeah, if we had one vote, and that was the, with the Jacobsbrook Middle School, we were anticipating one question.
Mhm.
We could do a secret ballot box, we could do all kinds of different things. But we're gonna have 14 or 15 different budget line items, 2 questions in each one, a non-contingency and contingency.
Yeah,
You know, because we could do hand counts legally, where you hold up a card.
Right,
You know,
that'd be
a yes or a no card. But how are you gonna count?
no, I don't know what.
You know,
Can you do combination clicker and hand count for whoever's left over that doesn't, everybody has to have the same.
I believe so, yeah.
All right,
How many
well,
clickers are you gonna have?
We're gonna have 2,300.
enough to cover the people inside, so I'll make the motion that we transfer $46,000 over from the reserve fund for the town meeting. And
Second.
whatever expenses.
Angela seconded. Any further discussion? All in favor? Aye. The number present voting is 4-1-0. Those are ones absent. No, 4-0-1. Sorry. Okay, I need you guys to initial this. And then Steve can have his copy. And so we are going to move the meeting minutes to the next meeting, which I'm going to try to set up for next week is just a meetings minutes meeting.
Okay.
So we can get all of that squared away. That's going to be the only thing on the agenda.
And when is that?
So can anybody, let's see. next week, because we don't even need a big, we just need any room. Maybe we can even meet at Finnerty House if we have to. Can anybody meet on March 26th or 27th? It'd be like a half-hour meeting.
27th's better for me, but I can make whatever work.
How about you, Mike?
Yeah, by Thursday.
Are you fine on Thursday?
Let's see, I think so.
Perfect, and Katie's usually pretty good for Thursdays too. So how about the next meeting will be Thursday, the 27th? And it's just gonna be for us to concentrate and get caught up on minutes. There's been so many meetings and so many whatever. Steve, this is for you. I'm gonna even wait for these, to have these and just do them all at once. And other than that, I think there's nothing else, is there? Let me cross my fingers. Nope, adjournment.
Motion to adjourn. Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. We are motion adjourned. Thank you, everybody, for coming.